Smart 24, driving business.
Exactly 20 minutes to the top of the hour. This is Smart Means Business. I'm Andre Barija. We'll be back from that short commercial break. Now, as we head into Caribbean East Africa, Kenya's internet advertising market projected to be the fastest growing in the world. Now, Kenya's entertainment and social media sector is poised for remarkable growth over the next 5 years. Now, with its internet advertising market leading to the charge as the fastest growing globally. Now, according to the PwC's Africa Entertainment and Media Outlook 2024-2028, Kenya's internet advertising revenue is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 17.4% between 2023 and 2028, surging from 163 million to about $365 million. Now, this growth is driven by the increasing internet penetration, the rise of the digital platforms, and the adoption of the mobile-first strategies, which are reshaping the advertising landscape in the country. Now, the Kenya E&M market, though smaller than South Africa and Nigeria, is actually safe to experience solid growth with a projected 5.2% across all the segments. Okay. Now, as we proceed along with the report, internet advertising and over-the-top streaming services are expected to be the fastest growing sectors. Of course, this is fueled by the expansion of the 4G and the 5G networks. Now, by the end of 2025, Kenya is anticipated to reach a tipping point where 4G subscriptions surpass 3G, further enhancing connectivity and enabling that is greater access to digital content. Now, the shift is critical for the growth of the internet advertising as mobile services dominate the market due to fixed broadband penetration, which stands at just 10.4% of households. Now, still we see that the report says that Kenya's unique position as mobile first market also extends to gaming, where traditional gaming revenues still exceed the mobile gaming in 2023. However, the gap is expected to narrow by 2028 as smartphone accessibility improves and social casual gaming gains traction. That is what they're saying. Now, the country's gaming sector is also benefiting from the rising mobile game spending, of course, driven by the increasing affordability of smartphones and data packages. We see that this trend aligns with the broader African market, where the mobile gaming dominates due to the limited accessibility of console and PC setups. Now, the OTT market in Kenya, though relatively small compared to South Africa, has doubled in the recent years and is projected to grow at least 10.9%. That is CAGR, reaching 60 million by 2028. Now, the growth is also supported by partnerships between international streaming services and the local telcos, offering lower-cost mobile-only plans to boost adoption. Now, however, the challenges such as inflation pressures and the removal of free mobile-only tiers by platforms like Netflix highlight the need for innovative pricing strategies that is to sustain growth in this particular segment. Now, live events in Kenya have also rebounded strongly post-COVID-19, with at least 2023 marking the highest ever live music tickets revenue surpassing pandemic levels. Now, additionally, the rise of what we call the connected TV advertising presents a significant opportunity for the future growth, as it definitely bridges the gap between the traditional linear TV and the premium online video. Now, CTV adoption in Africa is still in the early stages, Its potential to deliver addressable and measurable ads on the TV screens could actually transform the advertising landscape in Kenya and beyond. So that is what we see. Kenya's internet advertising market is projected to be the fastest growing in the world. All right. Away from Kenya now, still in Kenya, away from that story. Now, the Treasury is to pay 206 billion Kenyan shillings of pending bills after note. Now, Treasury and Economic Planning Cabinet Secretary, that is John Mbadi, has disclosed that the pending bills committee has actually green-lighted the payment of the 206 trillion Kenyan shillings worth of the pending bills. Now, this is out of the 663 billion Kenyan shillings owed by the government to suppliers, which have actually accumulated over time. Now, speaking at the Public Participation Forum of the Finance Bill 2025 in Nairobi, Mbadi explained that the approved 206 million Kenyan shillings was part of the larger effort to ensure that there is steady circulation of money within the economy. Now, he revealed that the Pending Bills Committee had analyzed a total of about 474 billion worth of the pending liabilities, ultimately approving the payment of about 206 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, he highlighted that the majority of the funds owed to small and medium enterprises, which had actually supplied the goods and services to the government for the amounts not exceeding 10 million Kenyan shillings. Now, this is what he said in his very own words. This payment will not only help in clearing the debt, but will also ensure that more money circulates in the economy. And that is a move aimed to at easing the financial pressures on the Kenyans. Now, Mbadi said that emphasizing the government's commitment, that is to improving the financial well-being as the citizens as part of the broad-based administration's promises. Likewise, Mbadi disclosed that the government is in the process of enacting a supplementary budget to settle the dues of the suppliers with the outstanding amounts not exceeding 10 million Kenyan shillings. Now, for those with larger dates, the payments will be cleared in a subsequent supplementary budget. Now, the cabinet had in June last year given a nod to the establishment of the special committee on the pending bills. Now, the pending bills verification committee is tasked with the auditing of the liabilities for the period between 2005 and 2022. Okay, and well, that is it from the Karibu East Africa. And now let's switch and take a look at what's making headlines beyond the borders of East Africa. Well, the shares on the American stock market are gaining some bit of stability as a counter to Trump's tariffs. Are they paying off to the United States of America? Now, share falls ease after Trump tariff turmoil. Now, the United States President, that is Donald Trump, plans for tariffs sparked a global sell-off on financial markets. That is on Monday, though a last-minute halt to levies on goods from Mexico and brought some relief. Now, after the steep losses earlier in the day, news of the reprieve prompted the shares to the stage of what we call the partial recovery, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average ending the day down just by 0.3%. Now, the rebound followed a sharp slide after Donald Trump issued orders over the weekend to put the tariffs on goods from Canada, Mexico, and China, and pledged that tariffs on the EU would actually definitely also happen. Now, investors are concerned that the tariffs will actually hit the earnings of the major companies and dent global growth, but many are still hoping that Trump is now serious. Now, the S&P closed at 0.76% lower than the Nasdaq that ended day down by about 1.2%. Now, the Canadian Prime Minister, that is Justin Trudeau, held talks with Donald Trump on the tariffs that were due to take effect on his country at midnight. Now, after the markets closed, Mr. Trudeau said that the two men had actually agreed that a deal would pause the tariffs for 30 days. Now, Simon French, that is an economist at Panmure Liberum, said that the investors have actually been pricing in an agreement with Canada, betting that threats were simply a negotiating position from the Trump administration. Now, earlier, the United States dollar strengthened on the currency markets amid the uncertainty, raising to a record high against the China's yuan, while the Canadian dollar plunged to its lowest level since 2023. Now, concerns about the tariffs had also hit the shares of Asia and Europe. Now, the German stock market fell by 1.4%, with the shares in car makers among the worst hit, and France's CAC 40 index dropped, that is to 1.2%. In London, FTSE 100 ended the day down by 1%. Now, investors are rattled at the prospects of a full-blown trade war breaking out, said that is Susanna Streeter, head of the money markets at the Hargreaves Lansdowne. Now, after the weekend, Donald Trump ordered tariffs of 25% on exports from Canada and Mexico to the United States, which were due to come into effect. That is at midnight on Tuesday. Now, Chinese made are still set to face a 10% levy in addition, that is to the existing tariffs. Now, the announcement that Donald Trump tied the concerns that is about the flow of illegal drugs and migrants into the United States, targeted the United States' three largest trading partners, and threatened that is major disruption in some of the world's biggest economies. Now, Canada and Mexico said they would hit back with what we call will retaliate, in form of other tariffs, while China promised corresponding countermeasures and vowed to challenge Donald Trump's move at the World Trade Organization. But in a sign of how swiftly the circumstances might change, Trump and Mexican President, that is Claudia Sheinbaum, said on Monday that she had agreed to send 10,000 troops to the border, and the tariffs would actually be on hold for 1 month as the two sides continue to negotiate. Now, many are still bracing for the wider tensions after Donald Trump on Sunday that it would definitely impose the tariffs on the EU, although he said while the UK was out of line, a deal could actually be worked out. Now, on the Dow, which tracks 30 high-profile companies meant to be representative of the economy, Nike and Apple, which both rely on China for manufacturing, were also among the hardest hit, with Apple down by more than 3%. Now, elsewhere, car makers such as Tesla and General Motors also saw share prices drop. Now, in Japan, Toyota shares fell 5% and Honda sank by 2%, while in Europe, shares in VW, that is in the Volkswagen, and Stellantis, whose brands include Chrysler, Citroën, Fiat, Jeep, and Peugeot, were down roughly 4%. Now, shares in drinks maker, that is Diageo, which exports, that is tequila from Mexico to the United States, also ended the day down, that is by 1.9%, trimming earlier losses, So Roosmold, that is the investment director at the AG Bell, said that there was a sea of red flashing on the markets. Now, Trump's tariffs could actually lead to higher inflation and put a stop to further interest rate cuts. For the time being, exactly the opposite of what equity investors, what could happen, he added. Now, as well as the dollar raising against the yen and the Canadian dollar, the euro fell as more than 2-year low against the US currency. Now, oil prices also rose following the news of the tariffs as the traders try to analyze how the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, the two biggest sources of oil imports to the United States, which could actually affect the market. Okay. Now, away from that story, let's take a look at South Africa. Now, South Africa and the United States feud takes shape as Trump aides caught. Now, a looming feud between Washington and Pretoria has actually begun taking shape after the United States President Donald Trump said he would be cutting aid because of the expropriation laws, and South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said his country looks forward to engaging with Trump's administration over their land reform policy and issues of bilateral interest. Now, according to Ramaphosa, the only aid South Africa receives from the United States is PEPFAR, which accounts for 17% of South Africa's HIV/AIDS program. Although estimates of the funding vary, the United States government indicates that it provided only $440 million in aid to the country, and that is for the year 2023. Although the immediate trigger of the Expropriation Act signed into law last month to address the historical disparities in land ownership, the feud between the United States and Africa's biggest economy is layered. Now, South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes as people very badly. This is what Donald Trump said in a post on Truth Social on Sunday. He said that I will be cutting off future funding to South Africa until the full investigation of this situation has actually been completed. Now, President Donald Trump's post had an immediate effect on the markets, with the rand trading nearly at 2% weaker than the United States dollar it did last week, and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange Top 20 Index dipping by 1.3% according to the Reuters. Now, the recently adopted Expropriation Act is not a confiscation instrument, but a constitutionally mandated legal process which ensures the public access to land is in an equitable manner as guided by the Constitution. Ramaphosa responded to Donald Trump on a post on X. Now, why it matters. Now, Pretoria is currently the chair of the G20 and will actually host the 2025 summit, which might be President Trump's first visit to the continent. Now, the likely meeting would actually underscore Washington's delicate balancing act in relations with Pretoria, which is Africa's biggest economy and has outsized on the continental politics. Now, the land angle of the feud is not new because Donald Trump raised it during his first term in office. At the time, South Africa said he was misinformed. While the current feud is about the Expropriation Act, there are several other layers in the strained relationship between Pretoria and Washington, D.C. Now, in response to the Ramaphosa entrepreneur and ex-owner Elon Musk asked, why do you have openly racist ownership laws? Now, Musk, who was born in Pretoria to a wealthy family, is a close Trump advisor with an outsized role in policy making. Now, Elon Musk and other Trump advisors have actually been clear about attracting the United States policy, especially aid and trade deals, to its own foreign policy, that is a national security goals. Now, last week alone, the recently inaugurated United States president threatened 100% tariffs against the BRICS countries, and we see which South Africa is a core member of other plans to replace the dollar as the bloc's reserve currency. Now, this places Pretoria in a group that includes nearly all Washington's traditional adversaries, such as China, Iran, and Russia. Now, South Africa is also facing backlash in the West over its prominent role in the Israel-Hamas conflict, where there is a prosecuting case at the International Court of Justice accusing Israel of committing genocide, genocide. Now, South Africa's case had been supported by over 30 countries, the African Union, the Arab League, and other multilateral organizers. So that is what we're seeing in there. And then finally, we're now talking about artificial intelligence. Now, generative artificial intelligence is fueling a new wave of fraud in Africa. So we're seeing artificial intelligence and fraud. It's a huge wave in Africa, so you need to be very careful. Now, rapid developments in generative artificial intelligence are fueling a new wave of fraud in Africa, with the fraudsters using AI to create hyper-realistic documents, images, and voices to be the verification systems. You can imagine. Now, the deepfake incidents increased sevenfold, that is from quarter 2 to quarter 4, and that is in 2024, according to an analysis by identity verification platform, that is Smile ID, as fraudsters exploit existing weaknesses in current verification and security systems. Now, a global poll by Deloitte reveals that 25.9% of executives have reported that their companies' financial and accounting systems have actually been targeted by the deepfake incidents. Now, according to the Smile ID, this resulted to a spike in the biometric fraud attempts, that is to its highest quarterly average in 3 years. Now, the overall biometric fraud surpassed that is document fraud in 2024, surging at 16% between April and June, but slightly dropping to 13% in the last quarter. Now, the document fraud in Africa rose from 4% in the first quarter of last year to 9% in the last quarter. Now, biometric fraud, unlike document fraud, is intended to manipulate and the vulnerabilities in the verification mechanism. Now, the national identity cards responded the highest fraud rate in 2024 at 27%, because they are the primary documents for identification and verification in almost all important processes. Now, they were followed by the driver's license, at least 24 passports at 20%, work permits at 19%, the voter's IDs at 14%. So you can see they're trying to show us how fraud through artificial intelligence is actually taking precedence in Africa. Now, fintechs are bearing the brunt. That is what they said. Now, the industries most targeted by fraud in 2024 were finance, e-commerce, and crypto. Now, the digital banks were most affected, with fraud cases peaking to 35% last year. Of course, followed by microfinance institutions where they peaked to about 30%, and digital banks are high risk due to their lower KYC requirements and faster transactions, which fraudsters find ideal for layered money laundering. Now, Android devices were notably the most commonly used by the fraudsters in the continent, averaging to about 16% of devices blocked in 2024 for attempting fraud. On the other hand, iOS devices saw a rising trend in fraud attempts, averaging at about 10%. Now, the need to combat fraud is evolving, and its evolving forms has spurred demand for digital identification platforms in both corporate and government agencies. Now, Smile ID determines that most fraud targets account logins, high-value transactions. They talk about password recovery attempts, which imply that sealing the loopholes with an advanced biometric KYC platform could actually effectively reduce the fraud rates. Now, adapting such measures will actually require intense collaboration and sharing of information between different entities. Now, businesses are I'll urge to invest in tools that can actually adequately detect, attempted identity breaches and adapt what we call the multi-factor authentication strategies. All right, that is it for our Caribbean, East Africa, and the international updates. Let's take a short break right now, and I'll be returning with our business tips and quotes and the business update of the day today. Stick around.